Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and any cryptids that might be listening. I do apologize in advance if this video offends you. Tonight, we've got not one, but two spine-tingling, viewer-submitted Dogman encounters, and trust me, these just might hit the spot. So without further ado, let's get rolling, shall we? My name isn't important for this story, and I'm keeping locations and details vague because I don't need some whack job finding me and making a Netflix documentary about me. I'm 32 years old and I live in Arizona, in a little rental house on the edge of town where the neighborhoods kind of peter out and turn into ponderosa pine forest. It's not a bad spot. Rent's cheap. I've got a yard, and it's quiet most of the time. Been here about 4 years now. I work at a lumber mill. Or I did, anyway. They laid me off 3 weeks ago, along with about 15 other guys. Budget cuts, they said. Economy's shit. Lumber prices are down. Same story everyone's heard 1,000 times. So I've been doing odd jobs where I can find them, collecting unemployment, trying to figure out what's next. This happened last Saturday night. I'd been at a bar downtown since around 8 p.m., just drinking and shooting pool with a couple buddies. Nothing crazy, just trying to blow off some steam. I had maybe 5 or 6 beers over the course of 3 hours. Wasn't plastered, but I definitely had a good buzz going. Around 11 p.m., my buddies called it a night, and I decided I was done too. I'd driven my truck there, but I wasn't in any shape to drive home. The bar is only about a 5-minute walk from my place anyway, so I figured I'd just leave the truck in the lot and grab it in the morning. Did the responsible thing for once. The walk home takes you down a street that runs right along the edge of the national forest. There's a sidewalk on one side and just trees on the other. No houses or anything. Just woods that go on for miles. During the day it's nice. At night it's dark as hell because there's only street lights every 100 yards or so. I was about halfway home, walking along with my hands in my jacket pockets, when I noticed something in the woods keeping pace with me. I could hear it moving through woods, making noise, snapping branches and rustling through the foliage. At first I figured it was a deer or an elk or something. We get those around here all the time. But then I saw the eyes, yellow eyes reflecting the streetlight, maybe 30 feet into the trees. My first thought was mountain lion. We've got a decent population of them in the area, and they'll sometimes come close to town, especially if they're young or desperate. That got my attention real quick. I stopped walking and turned toward the trees. "Hey, get out of here! Go on, get!" I yelled at it, trying to sound bigger and scarier than I felt. Waved my arms over my head like you're supposed to do with mountain lions. The eyes didn't move, just kept staring at me. I stood there for probably 10 seconds, heart starting to beat a little faster. My buzz was fading quick. I said, "Get the fuck out of here!" I yelled again, louder this time, picked up a rock from the side of the road and chucked it in that direction. Didn't hit anything, but I heard it crash through the branches. The eyes blinked once, then the thing turned and moved deeper into the woods. I heard it walking away, footsteps getting fainter. I stood there another minute just listening, then started walking again. Walked faster this time, kept glancing over my shoulder at the tree line. Made it home without seeing it again. My house is a small 2-bedroom ranch-style place. Nothing fancy. White siding, black roof, little concrete patio out back. The backyard butts right up against the forest, which I usually like, but right then I wasn't thrilled about it. I went inside, locked the front door, and grabbed a beer from the fridge. That whole thing with the animal in the woods had killed my buzz and I wanted to get it back. Plus I was kind of wired, adrenaline still going from thinking I was about to get jumped by a mountain lion. I took my beer out to the back patio and sat down in one of my plastic lawn chairs. The patio light bulb had burned out maybe a week ago, and I hadn't replaced it yet, so it was dark except for the glow from my phone screen. I was texting this girl I'd been talking to for a few weeks, trying to set something up for the next night. She was being flirty, sending me pictures, and I was getting into it. I heard something moving in the woods behind my yard. Just small sounds, rustling and scurrying. Probably a raccoon or a skunk. We get those all the time rummaging through trash. But after what happened on the walk home, I was more on edge than usual. I kept typing on my phone, but I was listening hard. The sounds got closer. I set my beer down on the arm of the chair and turned on my phone's flashlight, flipped it around and aimed it at the tree line. There was something walking out of the woods toward me, walking upright on two legs, tall and thin, moving slow and steady. At first, my brain tried to make it make sense. Someone in a costume, one of my buddies fucking with me. But the way it was moving, it didn't move like a human. I have a little metal shed in my backyard that I'd put up last month for my lawnmower and tools. The shed is 8 feet tall, and this thing was every bit as tall as the shed, maybe taller. It was walking with its head down, aimed at the ground, arms hanging at its sides. Then it looked up. Yellow eyes. The same eyes I'd seen in the woods on my walk home. And in the beam of my phone's flashlight I could see the face. Elongated wolf's snout. Pointed ears. Covered in a thick coat of dark fur. My brain locked up for a second. This was the thing that had been following me earlier. It had come back. It had followed me home. "Quit fucking with me," I yelled at it. My voice came out shaky. "This ain't funny. I'm going to kick your ass." It didn't respond, just kept walking toward me, slow and steady. Then it stopped maybe 15 feet from the patio and let out weird, deep, moaning growl sound. It opened its mouth and I saw teeth. Long teeth dripping with saliva. This bastard was salivating. It wanted to eat me. That's when I knew. This wasn't a person, this wasn't a prank. This was a real animal, a real predator. And I needed to get inside right fucking now. I stood up fast, the lawn chair flipping over, back toward the sliding glass door, keeping the light on the thing. It took another step toward me and I bolted inside, slammed the door shut behind me, locked it. My shotgun. I needed my shotgun. I keep a Weatherby 12 gauge in my bedroom closet for home defense. It's a pump action, holds 4 in the tube, plus 1 in the chamber. I'd always kept it for situations like this. Mountain lions, coyotes, whatever might come sniffing around the house. Never thought I'd actually need to use it, though. The gun wasn't loaded. I grabbed it from the closet and a box of shells from the shelf, dumped them across my bed. My hands were trembling so bad I dropped the first shell twice before I got it loaded. Pumped 1 into the chamber, loaded 4 more into the tube. 5 rounds total. I walked slowly back through the hallway toward the living room, shotgun raised. I looked out the sliding glass door. The thing was right there, standing on my patio. It reached up one long arm and dragged its claws along the glass. The sound made my skin crawl, like nails on a chalkboard, like silverware scraping on a paper plate. That awful sound that makes your spine shiver and your skin prickle. I stood there frozen, shotgun pointed at the door. I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to fire inside the house, didn't want to blow out my own sliding glass door and have to pay for it when I could barely afford groceries. But I also didn't want to open the door with that thing standing right there. I walked over and yanked the blinds closed. The scratching stopped. I heard footsteps moving around the side of the house, then scratching at the kitchen window. I spun that direction, shotgun up. The sound lasted maybe 5 seconds, then stopped. Then scratching at the front door. Heavy, aggressive scratching like it was trying to dig through the wood. How the hell did it get around the house that fast? My house isn't big, but it's not that small either. The thing had gone from the back patio to the kitchen window, to the front door, in maybe 8 seconds. I'd had enough. I pulled out my phone and dialed 911, keeping the shotgun pointed toward the front door with one hand. 911, what's your emergency? There's some kind of feral animal trying to break into my house. Some kind of fucking werewolf or something. I don't know what it is, but... A werewolf? The dispatcher's voice went flat. Sir, have you been drinking tonight? No. I mean, yes. I had a few beers earlier, but I swear to God there is something outside my house right now trying to get in, and Sir, this line is for emergencies only. It's a crime to call 911 and play games or make prank calls. Have a nice night and don't call this number again. The line went dead. She'd hung up on me. Are you fucking kidding me? I said out loud, slammed my phone down on the kitchen table. The scratching had stopped. I stood there in my kitchen, shotgun raised, listening. Complete silence for maybe 30 seconds. Then I heard it on the roof, walking across the roof right above my head, scratching at the shingles. How did it get up there? The roof is at least 12 feet off the ground. It circled the whole house. I could track it by sound, scratching at the walls, at the windows, at the roof. Walking around and around like I was prey trapped in a cage, and it was trying to find a way in. I didn't know what else to do. I sat down in my rocking chair in the living room, shotgun across my lap, and just waited. Listened to it scratch and pace and test every possible entry point. I must have dozed off at some point, because I woke up to the sound of shattering glass. The sliding glass door exploded inward, glass flying everywhere. I saw a dark shape coming through the opening. I raised the shotgun and fired. Didn't aim, didn't think, just pulled the trigger on pure instinct. The sound was so loud inside the house that it made my ears buzz. It made a sound I'll never forget. A high-pitched yelp, almost like a dog that's been hurt. Then it turned and ran, crashing back through the broken door and disappearing into the darkness. I tried to get up to follow it, but my foot slipped on the throw rug in front of the couch. Went down hard on my left side. Felt my shoulder pop out of socket with a grinding sensation and a burst of white-hot pain. I screamed, rolled onto my back, clutching my arm. The pain was so bad I thought I was going to throw up. But I forced myself to get up, using my good arm to push off the floor. Grabbed my phone off the kitchen table, turned on the flashlight with shaking fingers. I walked straight through the broken glass door opening, barefoot, crunching on glass. I didn't care. I needed to see if I'd hit it. There was blood on the patio, dark, wet blood catching the light from my phone. A lot of it. The trail led across my lawn toward the tree line, splatters and drops getting smaller as it went. I followed it to the edge of the woods, and then it just disappeared into the darkness. I went back inside and called 911 again, told them I'd hurt myself, thought I'd broken my shoulder, and there had been shots fired at my address. Kept it simple this time, didn't mention werewolves. The ambulance showed up in maybe 8 minutes, 5 police cruisers right behind it. By then, half my neighbors were outside in their bathrobes and pajamas, standing in their yards trying to see what was going on. The EMTs came in and looked at my shoulder. One of them, a young guy, maybe 25, said it looked dislocated. They gave me something for the pain and loaded me onto a stretcher. Meanwhile, the cops were walking around my house with their flashlights. I could hear them talking to each other, confused voices. One of them came over to where I was on the stretcher. "Sir, can you explain the damage to your house?" "What damage?" "There are claw marks all over your exterior walls. Deep gouges. They go all the way up to the roofline. And there's blood in your backyard that trails off into the woods." I told the dispatcher. "There was an animal trying to get into my house. I shot it." "What kind of animal?" I looked at him. He was maybe 40, crew cut, serious face. "I don't know, it was big. Walked on 2 legs. I've never seen anything like it." He wrote something in his notebook. "You been drinking tonight, sir?" "A few beers earlier. But I'm telling you the truth. Look at my house. Look at those claw marks. You think I did that myself?" He didn't answer. Just told me the EMTs were going to take me to the hospital now and someone would follow up with me later. They took me to the hospital. X-rays showed my shoulder was dislocated but not broken. They reset it, which hurt worse than anything I've ever felt in my life. Gave me a sling and some ice and told me to follow up with an orthopedist. Prescribed me some pain pills and sent me home around 4 a.m. My buddy picked me up and drove me back to my place. The sun was coming up by then. There were still 2 cop cars in my driveway and yellow tape around my backyard. They'd photographed everything. The broken glass door, the blood, the claw marks on the walls. A detective came by later that morning and took my statement. Asked me the same questions the other cops had asked. I told him the same answers. He didn't believe me, I could tell, but he couldn't explain the claw marks either, or the blood trail. They'd sent samples to a lab, but he said it would take weeks to get results. They never found whatever it was I shot. The blood trail went about 50 yards into the woods and then just stopped. No body, no tracks they could identify. Nothing. The official report listed it as an animal attack, species unknown. My homeowner's insurance covered the sliding glass door. I installed new locks, motion sensor lights all around the house, and I keep the shotgun loaded now. I haven't seen it again since that night. Sometimes when I'm sitting on my back patio, with the new light bulb installed and working, I'll look out at the tree line and wonder if it's still out there, if it's watching me from the shadows with those yellow eyes. Maybe it's still alive somewhere with some buckshot in its side. Maybe it learned its lesson and knows better than to mess with me again. Or maybe it died out there in the woods, and the coyotes got to it before anyone could find the body. I don't know. I just know what I saw, and I know I hid it, and I know I'm never walking home drunk from a bar again. Hello, Dr. Whisper and listeners. I hope you are all doing well. My name is Chris, and I am writing to share an encounter that my late husband had, which is what originally led me to research the Dogman. The incident took place one day in September during the late 1990s. My late husband, Jimbo, and his cousin Waldo decided on a whim to go hunting. They gathered their gear and headed to the Humboldt-Toyabe National Forest in Northern California. Because it was a spontaneous trip, they arrived in the late morning and quickly headed out to begin their hunt. Several hours went by with no luck finding any deer, so they stopped for a short break, ate a snack, and decided that they could cover more ground if they split up and took one last sweep of the area. It was getting to be past 4 p.m., and they had quite a drive ahead of them. Waldo headed to the trail on their left, and Jimbo took the one on the right. Finally, just as Jimbo was ready to quit for the day and was almost back to the truck, he looked up the hill above him. About 20 feet from where he stood, he saw a buck. He got his gun ready, had his sights on it, and had his finger on the trigger when he saw what looked like a hand on the buck's back. Since he couldn't identify what it was, he put his gun down and stood there frozen. He couldn't move or barely speak. He turned his head to tell Waldo to look up, that there was a deformed Bigfoot up there. When he looked back up the hill, both the deer and the creature were gone. Jimbo could finally move again and speak, so they got back into their truck and Jimbo tried to tell Waldo what he saw, to which Waldo replied, "Yeah, right, dude." One day in 2019, while Jimbo was telling me about this encounter, I said, "Wait a minute. When you say it was a deformed Bigfoot, what do you mean? Can you tell me what it looked like, how big it was, all that sort of stuff?" He replied that he thought it was a young one because it wasn't much taller than him, and he was 5 feet 10 inches tall. He couldn't see all of it because it was peeking out from behind a tree like it was playing peekaboo. It had pointy, almost Doberman-type ears on top of its head, eyes that were almost a glowing amber, and a long snout with long, sharp teeth. It had long, skinny arms with raccoon-type hands that reached slightly past the knee, and canine legs. It finally dawned on me that this didn't sound like a Bigfoot at all, which led me to start researching. I found the Dogman Encounters radio website by Vic Cundiff and saw the different types, and sure enough, one of them matched the creature Jimbo had seen. Before I share my own encounters, I wanted to share one more thing Jimbo experienced, and you can tell me in the comments what you think it could have been. Jimbo was hunting again somewhere in Northern California, but this time he was only with his dog, Wyatt, a black Labrador. It was duck hunting season, and he had just shot a duck when Wyatt ran and grabbed it. Suddenly, Wyatt came dashing past poor Jimbo with his tail tucked between his legs. Jimbo then heard rustling in the trees, But whatever this was, it was so huge that the trees were practically bending in half. Jimbo didn't wait around to see what it was. He ran as fast as he could, and he and Wyatt made it safely back to the truck and home without ever seeing what it was. I didn't know Jimbo at the time of his hunting trips. I was young and naive when I married my first husband. I met him at church, so I thought he must be safe, right? I was very wrong. I married him the day after I turned 19, and in less than 6 months, the abuse started. I met Jimbo at the end of 2007, right after I turned 30, and he died from medical neglect and malpractice on March 5th, 2020, just before the COVID outbreak. I'm sorry for sharing other things before getting to my encounters, but Jimbo deserves some recognition from me. Please forgive me. Due to trauma and other life circumstances, while I remembered encountering something unknown and living with fear and always feeling watched, my mind had hidden some of the details from me until I began my search into the Dogman. I had 2 close encounters and other sightings over the years. I had just turned 6 about 6 weeks prior to my first encounter. I shared a room and a bed with my 4-year-old sister Faye. We lived in Clackamas County in the small town of Oak Grove in Milwaukee, Oregon, on the outskirts of Portland. The population was under 23,000 in 1983. The front of our house sat almost at the end of a dead-end street, around 8 blocks from the busy street of McLaughlin Boulevard. Our bed was around 8 feet from the window. On the back side of the house, beneath the window, we had a partial basement, one of those crawl spaces used when something needs to be fixed. From the ground to the bottom of the window was 8 feet, which we measured later when we got older. From the back of the house to the thin tree line was about 15 feet. There were between 3 to 4 rows of trees, then a small fence, and behind the fence were thick blackberry thorn bushes. Beyond that was a small road that led to a park about a mile from us, and then a river. We were all worn out from the big move and unpacking, so all of us, including our parents and grandma, were asleep by 10 p.m. I'm not sure how much time had gone by, or even what time it was, but my sister and I jumped awake after hearing tap, tap, tap on our window. We sat up, rubbed our eyes, and then looked at each other until we heard the tap, tap, tap again. We looked at the window and started shaking and gasped. Then my sister hugged me, laid back down, rolled over and went back to sleep. She later told me she was only a little bit scared but thought she would be okay because her big sister would protect her from the monster outside our window. Not me, though. Being the big sister, I thought this scary thing was going to come inside and kill all of us. It would be 2 years before I knew what a werewolf or cryptid was, so both of us called it a hairy Darth Vader, since he was the first villain we thought of. This creature gave off a terrifying presence, like it didn't want us there, like it wanted us to leave. I laid back down, but I wouldn't take my eyes off of it. I felt as though if I looked away, it would come in and get us. The creature had ears on the top of its head with tufts of fur, and a huge canine head with a snout kind of like a Rottweiler's. I saw those teeth all too well. It was growling and snarling, and the window even seemed to be shaking a bit. Thick drool dripped off its teeth and its eyes glowed red. Since one hand was tapping on the window, I only saw it for a couple of seconds, but from what I could see, it had hands, not paws, with long, thick black claws. I couldn't see lower than the shoulders, which were probably about 4 feet wide. It had what looked like very dark brown fur. The bottom of the window was 8 feet off the ground, and this thing's chin was about at the middle of the window, so I would guess that with its ears and the rest of its head, it had to be about 9 feet tall. I had nightmares for years, and still can't be near windows at night. I'm even still nervous around them sometimes during the day, because I know that they can be anywhere at any time. Even Vic Cundiff has said that you wouldn't believe how many daytime reports he receives. I can't tell you how long the Dogman stayed. I don't remember seeing it leave. All I remember is that I was awake for a very long time, and when I finally woke up, it was gone. We ran and told our parents about the monster at our window, so my dad called his brother, and they went out with at least one gun. They found strange footprints that went from below the window to the bushes. They looked like elongated canine prints with a narrow, sort of heel-like shape to them. They showed us the prints and told us some creep must have dressed up in a costume. They didn't believe what we saw, and my sister doesn't like to talk about it. For the next 10 years, I would see shadows moving between the trees and bushes, feel like I was being watched, and sometimes see glowing red eyes. Until one day our house burned down. I don't know who or what caused it, and that's all I have on the first encounter. Here is the second encounter. It was February 1997, and I was 4 months pregnant with my first child. I was 19 years old. My husband and I lived off of Holcomb Road in Oregon City, Oregon, still in Clackamas County, but this was quite a bit more rural than my first encounter, which had been in a suburban neighborhood. We were living in government housing, in a studio duplex-type apartment complex with units scattered all over the property. The laundry room was up a small hill toward the back of the property, about 10 feet from a thick tree line that ran for miles and eventually led to a cemetery where I later had to take my daughter after she died at 6 weeks old of pulmonary hypertension crisis following her heart surgery. All around the property and along the road we lived on was farmland, miles of trees, and a small Baptist church. It was 3:30 in the afternoon, and I was heading out to start a second load of laundry. I had a pretty large laundry basket in one hand and the keys to the laundry room in the other, walking from the direction of my apartment. There were a few trees between me and the bottom of the hill that leads up to the laundry room. I looked toward the bottom of the hill and saw what I thought was a huge wolf eating a squirrel or other small rodent, until I noticed it had hands and wasn't sitting the way a wolf would. It was squatting more like a human. I think it probably knew I was there, but it wasn't facing me. Since I was much closer to the laundry room than to my apartment, I backed up, went another direction, and made my way up the hill. By the time I came around and up the hill, the dogman had finished eating and stood up. It sniffed the air, turned around, and looked right at me. It had to be at least 8 feet tall to stand above the hill. I stopped. Everything felt like it was in slow motion. I was trying to think of what to do next. I didn't want to look it directly in the eyes. I didn't want to run because it would chase me, and I didn't want to turn my back on it either. So I backed up, hands shaking, trying to get the keys ready while still moving. But by the time I reached the door, the dogman was up the hill and standing over me. I stood with my back against the door, trying to get the key into the lock, which was getting more and more difficult as the dogman moved closer to my face. I could feel its hot, stinking breath on my face. There was no way, at that distance and after seeing how easily it had moved up the hill, that I could have misidentified what I was looking at. I prayed to God for protection and to help me get the door open, as I couldn't stop shaking. Its nose was almost touching mine when it reached out to grab me. It was as if something pushed it back just enough for me to get inside and lock the door. I thanked God for getting me into the room, where I felt at least somewhat safer. About that time it started jiggling the door handle back and forth. It stopped for a few seconds and went quiet. Since the window faced the trees, I knew it hadn't gone that way. I started to walk toward the window to see if it had left, when suddenly its face appeared there, wearing a hideous smile. I didn't get any closer to the window. I had seen enough of this creature. At the time, I still hadn't seen a werewolf movie, but I knew what they were. I have since seen quite a few. Most of you have probably seen the Underworld films, and in the second one, William was the first werewolf. This dogman looked a lot like him, though I don't remember if William had canine legs. This dogman had glowing cobalt blue eyes. I hid behind one of the machines, hoping it would get bored and leave. I'm not sure how much time passed, or when it walked away from the window, but I heard lights scratching on the side of the building, which would stop and then start up somewhere else. Eventually, it went silent for a few minutes. I slowly turned around and looked at the window and saw it turn around and start heading toward the trees. I slowly walked to the window, and when I looked out, it was at the tree line. It turned and looked at me one last time, got down on all fours and disappeared into the trees. My husband Jerome must have thought I was taking too long and came to check on me. He arrived just as the dogman was moving from standing upright to getting down on all fours, so he thought he was hallucinating. When I told him my story, he said, "Yeah, right. As far as I know, that was my last encounter with a dogman. I now live in Utah and would love to hear stories from my state. Whether people believe me or not, everything I am telling you is true. Dr. Whisper, I really enjoy your channel. Your stories are very interesting, and I am sorry to the people who had to go through these things. I don't like discussing evolution. It's a sad topic for me, and I'm not going to go into full preaching mode, but I do ask you to hear me out about where these things come from. I have seen too much to doubt that God is real and our Creator, and I will not go into those details here. But God has shown me that dogmen are half Nephilim, which is half fallen angel and half human, and also half ancient canine. Thank you for hearing me out, and God bless." Thanks so much for sticking around until the end, traveler. I hope I didn't scare you too much. I just wanted to give you all a quick heads up. If you didn't know already, we're also on Patreon, Spotify, and Rumble. I'll be able to apply to get back into the YouTube Partner Program in late March. But if that doesn't work out, we'll be moving fully over to those other platforms. All the links to my platforms are in this video's description, so go ahead, follow me there, and show your support so you're ready when the transition happens. And if you want early access to all my stories completely ad-free, head over to my Patreon. Starting at just $5 a month, you'll get all my content plus my music. Thank you all so much. I love you all, and I can't wait to see you on the next adventure.